now call to order. And we will start Pledge of Allegiance with Trustee McGee leading.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Trustee McGee. And I'm sorry. Are we on? Okay. And that will take us to good news with Mr. Thurn.
Okay, thank you, President Brooks. Trustees, good evening. I certainly have some good news updates for you tonight. So, trustees, what I want you to notice, or know as we get started, is that tonight's portion of good news is really an in-person good news, if you will, with some of our students and staff who are joining us here tonight. But before I bring them up to the podium to be honored, I just want to mention a couple of things. First up is the congratulations that's in order to our varsity girls basketball team who won the regional title last week, and they play tomorrow night against Carleton Airport. You know, they're defending state champs, and if they get past Carleton Airport tomorrow night at 7 p.m. at Chelsea High School, they will advance to the Final Four to be played again at Michigan State University at the Breslin Center. So go Lady Indians. And then I wanted to mention this again. We have started to communicate. Maybe you noticed letter to the editor in the Herald. There will be lots of stuff going out on Facebook and flyers. But 'tis the season. Kindergarten Roundup is just around the corner. We're going to welcome the class of 2039. We have a great day planned for Kindergarten Roundup out at Sutton. Kids can take bus rides. The nurses will be there. Teachers will be there. PE, PLTW. It'll be a great time, with some community organizations supporting the event as well. So if you find yourself with an interest on Saturday, April 11th to come visit and see us in action, that would be great. You're welcome. All right, now to the in-person recognition. So first up tonight, you know this because I told you, trustees, but we have a You Be the Solution team from Tecumseh Middle School who has done some pretty darn amazing things. So Mr. Way and Mrs. Stamper are here, and they're going to come up to the podium. They're going to share a little bit about what You Be the Solution team is and the kind of things they did, and introduce the kids, and you know, an entirely sweet trophy as well that I'm seeing for the first time. So that's great.
Hi, everybody. So this is part of our team of You Be the Solution, all but one. Yeah. So we had a mix of 5th, 6th, and 8th graders this year, and we're really proud of the fact that we were the only school district in the county to take 5th graders to the competition this year. So to introduce them, we have Kenley Rogers, Lillian Stamper, Milo Davis, we have Ryder Cole, Adler English, Annabelle Rhodes, Annabelle Byers, Colin Marsh, and we are missing Reed Phillip, who was at the choir concert, at the choir festival this evening. So I'd like to point out that we did have a first place team again this year, and that first place team did consist of Annabelle Byer, Colin Marsh, and Reed Phillip. Thanks. Was there anything that you wanted to
Can you just tell us a little bit about what the kids did during the competition?
So we typically start with the application process in October. We apply for teams, like Mrs. Stamper said. We try to spread it out between 5th through 8th grade, which is kind of a rarity with the other districts. They usually send 8th grade teams only. This year we did have all grades represented. Our 7th grade team did back out last minute for us, but all grades represented. They start with a pre-assessment to kind of see where they're at with their chemistry level, and then we go into weeks of rehearsal and practice for the trivia contest. It's pretty much college level and high school level trivia questions,
Wow.
all surrounding chemistry. Mrs. Stamper and I are learning on the way as well. well. This is our 4th year doing this, and we figured this year we're going to do electronic configuration, we're going to do stoichiometry, we're going to do balancing chemical equations, and this group just took to it. I mean, they were like sponges. They wanted to do more balancing equations and more electronic configuration. And when we get to the 4th round, it's 4 rounds of 10 questions. Got to the 4th round, the first question that came up was electron configuration, and the smiles, I mean, you can see them here and here. Every group got the question right, and these are the hardest questions, I mean, you know, in round 4. And all the other groups are like, what is that? What are you testing us on? And these kids knew it. I mean, they were just blowing us away this year with how much they got into it. So, like Mrs. Stamper said, back-to-back champs. They now have an opportunity with the winning group to do a video portion of this, which will be sent into the national, state and national competition. So that's what they're working on finishing up now before spring break, and fingers crossed, hopefully they place pretty well in that. But it's a tough one.
Sure.
So they reserve that for now, just the top 6 teams.
Well, that is fantastic. Trustees, do you have any questions? Well, don't go anywhere because, do we have?
No, I just said nice job.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
absolutely. Fantastic. Don't go anywhere because we're actually going to come up and take a picture, okay? And then parents, if you're here, if you want to come up and get pictures as well, you're more than welcome. Okay, well, congratulations again to our You Be the Chemist, or I'm sorry, that was last year, You Be the Solution team. Yes, You Be the Solution team. So trustees, next up, I mentioned this. Congratulations again to Miss Carrie Barden on being named Michigan Regional Teacher of the Year for Region 8. This is certainly a well-deserved and earned honor and dedication for Miss Barden and her passions for everything that she does in the classroom each and every day. I believe she is here. Carrie, can you come up to the podium, please? Congratulations, Carrie.
Thank you.
Very, very well done. We're
you.
so happy for you and excited.
Yes.
And you and I talked a little bit, so my hope is you'll just share a little bit about, with the board what this journey has been like
Okay.
for you, and we'll see if they have any questions.
All right, so early fall, I received an email notification from the Michigan Department of Education stating that I had been nominated, and the nomination made it through a select process, and that I was invited to apply to become the Regional Teacher of the Year. And I ignored the email, and then we had a fog delay, and I had come into school anyway, and then that fog delay turned into a fog day. I don't remember the date of that, and then I was like, oh, I'm at school, maybe I will go for this, and I ended up applying at that time, and then eventually I received notification that I had made it through a round, and here I am today, so.
Awesome. So what's next?
So what's next is a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, I had to go to Lansing, to the Michigan Department of Education, and there's 10 of us that are from all the different regions, and we were interviewed. We had to create a professional development presentation. It could be on anything of our choice, which makes it really hard. It wasn't narrowed down for us. And then we went through an interview process, and then they'll let us know. The way I look at it is we were all like 10 on a team, and they're just going to pick like our team captain
Yep.
for the next 26-27 school year.
So can I prompt for one more thing?
Sure.
Okay, so she's being very humble. I actually saw her professional development presentation that she shared in Lansing. Can you just share a little bit about it?
Sure. So my professional development presentation was all about community involvement and the power of community connections, and what that can do not only for our students, but what that can do for our community. And so the learning that can take place outside of the curriculum, the curriculum and the standards, and how powerful that can be for everybody involved. And that is what I presented on, because that is my passion, and I find so much learning can take place not only with the students, but adults can learn from the students as well when we make all those connections together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Trustees, any questions for Carrie?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy to represent Tecumseh and Lenawee County, as well as all of Region 8.
All of Region 8,
Not
yes.
quite sure what Region 8 is quite yet, but I will be learning.
So what is the next step?
So the next step is I just wait to hear who becomes the Michigan Teacher of the Year. So it will be one of the 10 that are
is that-
regional teachers. So it's
Gotcha.
one of the 10 people, yeah. And then my year begins, I believe, in July, with a Michigan Department Michigan Board of Education meeting. And then I go from there with all of I have these dates of different things I have to attend, including meetings and conferences and different things like that. But I think a lot of it will be perhaps trying to bring in some new educators to Tecumseh. And
Nice.
I hope to be an advocate for coming to Tecumseh Public Schools.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Carrie, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Very proud
Absolutely.
of you.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? No? All right.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks, Carrie.
Thanks, Carrie.
And so, trustees, we will end on those two high notes. So back to you, President Brooks.
That is awesome. That takes us to public comment. Do we have any public comment today? Okay, then I won't read the blurb. And I will ask if there are any revisions that we're aware of. With no revisions, I will ask for,
I move to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
roll call vote. Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Martinez?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That takes us to scheduled reports, starting with Darcy.
So trustees, we're going to kind of collapse into one report, the Budget Committee as well as the monthly finance report, because the Budget Committee agenda tonight was really the monthly monitoring reports.
Okay.
So, Mr. Lenar.
Mr. Leonard.
Thank you very much. We did meet earlier before this meeting, a very small agenda, but you received it in your packet, the treasurer's report with the list of payrolls and invoices and bills paid for the month, list of the check register. We reviewed those. And then we spent some time talking about the monthly financial reports and answering some questions on those. February was a good month in that we actually brought in more money than we spent. I know we've looked at that in other months where we've been on the other side of that equation. And for the year, overall revenues exceed overall expenditures. So not only for the month, but through February, we're cash equal at this point in time, or ahead, so that we haven't spent more than we've received, which is good. And the budget appears to be tracking well. There's a couple of adjustments here and there that we have to make. We are planning for a May budget update for you for the end of the year, where we'll say this is where we believe we're going to be. I know the current budget shows a small deficit, a slight deficit of about $300,000. It will be positive, I can tell you, by year end. I don't have an exact number, but it will be positive, I can tell you that for sure. And that's what we're working on as we move forward. Next month, Darcy will have the other non-general fund budgets for you to review for an update. Once a year, we're going to take a look at the food service, the debt retirement, the capital projects, the sinking fund, all the other non-general funds that we have, so that we'll do those once a year to keep you up to date on those. No real surprises or big issues with those, but we want to bring those to your attention once a year to keep you up to date on what's happening in those areas, and then we'll come back in May with the general fund. That's it.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So that would bring us to Ms. Way with the Curriculum Committee.
Good evening. Okay, so we had our Curriculum Committee meeting on March 4th at 5 o'clock. It was a pretty light agenda because the next few months are going to be full of end-of-the-year reports, so I wanted to take it easy on them this last month, or this month. So we talked about two things, really. We talked about a change that's going to be happening next year for us for 8th grade algebra. We offer 8th grade algebra for high school credit currently, and that is taken at the middle school. We have been talking about this for a couple of years, but decided we're going to go ahead and move forward with it for next year. Any student who qualifies for 8th grade algebra next year will take it here at the high school first hour, and then they will get on a transportation bus and go back to the middle school for second hour. We have other students that currently do this for other classes now, so the system's already in place. But we want to do that because we want to make it very equitable. So we want to make sure that our students who are in 8th grade algebra really are meeting that level of rigor of a high school course. What we've been finding as we've been doing our curriculum work and pacing and things like that is that the middle school isn't really moving as fast of a pace as high school, and then there's an inequity there. We need to make sure if we're offering high school credit that it's meeting the same standards and criteria as the high school course. So we will be making that change for next year. Students, of course, have to qualify for algebra as an 8th grader. We use a couple of different metrics. We use our iReady diagnostic in the spring. We have a cut score that they need to be at. Which goes on, and also goes along with teacher recommendation. They have to have a teacher recommend them to take that. And then the final piece is we look at their M-STEP math data that we get in the spring. Well, they take it in the spring, we get it in early summer. So that will kind of be the final piece. They need to be proficient or advanced for their grade level to be able to take an advanced course as an 8th grader. So notifications going home to families soon, if it hasn't already, to our current 7th grade families, just to let them know this is a change, this will be coming. Of course, they have to agree to allow their student to go to the high school to take this course. But yeah, so that's going to be a change for us. We talked about that. And then we also just talked about some work that we're doing in curriculum with pacing guides. So as we've been building up our curriculum over the past several years through our curriculum review cycle, a lot of the work that we've been doing is developing pacing guides. So departments work together, grade levels work together, and they make sure that we're delivering the curriculum equitably across a grade level or a department. So we've been working on it, and now it was time for a little bit of the check-in, accountability piece with that. So the administrators, myself, and instructional coaches walked around and got into as many classrooms as we could. We took a look at what they were doing. We talked to the students. Then we went back and looked at the pacing guides and say, are they where they're supposed to be? Are they doing the activities, using the curriculum as intended? And we have all but one building done. We're going to do Sutton's our last building tomorrow. But it's been going really well, and we've been really pleased to see the alignment between departments and between grade levels to make sure that if you're a 4th grader in teacher A's class, you're getting the same exact curriculum as the 4th grader in teacher B's class. So that's very important work for us, and now this is the fun part where we get to check in. We've done all the work, now we get to check in and make sure that's going well. So really those were the two things that we talked about at our meeting. Do you guys have any questions?
I have one question. So the 8th graders coming to the high school, will they mix with 9th and 10th graders in algebra, or?
They will if there's a need for that. If there's enough eighth graders to fill one class, then it'll just be the 8th graders in the one class. But we are making sure that the students that are in this class are ready for this class. So we may have less than we've traditionally had. So if it, you know, it's a lower number, then there may be some 9th graders in that class as well. We'll just kind of have to see how many kids are, you know, qualify for it.
I just had one question about the notes for the meeting. I just want to make sure that I understood. In the last presentation you gave about AP versus dual enrollment, you gave a number where AP did X percent better on the standardized test, SAT possibly.
SAT, yep.
And then the other number, was that versus dual enrollment or was that versus everyone else?
So it was dual enrollment versus any students taking an in-person class here. So it didn't even have to be AP. It was AP or just a general English 9. But it was more the in-person with our staff versus dual enrollment outside of our building through Jackson College or Washtenaw, wherever they're taking it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White.
Oh, thank you.
Up next, we would have, you.
That is me.
Policy Committee.
You got it. Trustees, the Board Policy Committee did meet back on February 24th. We had a number of agenda items. You should be able to see them in your board packet, and I'll move through them. The first thing we talked about at our Policy Committee meeting was we had a small Thurn package of updates. That's actually on for discussion a little later this evening, so I'll speak to that then. We talked about the TPS brand and brand identity, and the committee discussed the T logo with the hatchet and feathers, and we also had some discussion about the T without either of those things as well. And we talked about our desire to protect our identity, but also knowing that our logo is pretty widespread in this community, and people will use it quite frequently. So we want to take some steps to do some research around how we might protect our brand identity without inadvertently creating limits within that. And so I'm going to do some research and consult with some people around that and then report back to that committee. The next thing we talked about at the Policy Committee was our fund balance. We've been having this discussion as a board, and we followed up as a committee recently. Our discussion started with a focus, really focused on Board Policy 3202, which essentially defines a goal for the board, and so I'll read it to you. The board's goal is to maintain an annual unassigned general fund balance of at least 12% of estimated expenditures. So we discussed this policy, and we also discussed how the state of Michigan evaluates the fund balance of its public school districts. And we know that the state of Michigan uses a 5% threshold of unassigned revenue for school districts that might go on the state's watch list. So trustees, you know that our current percentage of unassigned revenue is approximately 11%. So the committee discussed both the goal and the language, and the discussion revolved around leaving the 12% goal for now, but having a broader board discussion around changing the language of our policy to align with how the state actually measures it. So it would be a move from percentage of expenditures to percentage of revenues that would put us in line with the state. As part of that, and one of the most important pieces of our discussion, in my estimation anyway, was we talked about the fund balance being really being a trailing indicator of success as opposed to a leading one. And what I mean by that is that when our budgets are built correctly, monitored appropriately, and adjusted throughout the year, the fund balance takes care of itself. Meaning that as we monitor monthly and we ensure accuracy, that fund balance, or the goal for our fund balance, however we set the initial budget, will take care of itself. And so we believe that thanks to the work of Mr. Lennar and Mrs. Francoeur, that we are on track with our monthly monitoring reports and how we're building and monitoring our budgets each and every month. Next up, we had quite a lengthy agenda, bear with me here. We also talked about our annual audits, and the board has had some of this discussion as well, and the committee discussed and actually recommended adding a formal policy regarding the need for board study sessions with the auditors prior to the formal audit report. So essentially meaning we would have our study sessions where each member would have an opportunity to sit with the auditor in a small group, ask questions before we bring the audit to the full board presentation. So I'm going to look at some language around a formal policy and report back. And then the last thing we talked about, trustees, you know this, back in January, the MHSAA approved a policy that essentially permits public school student athletes to profit from personal brand activities, or PBA, otherwise known as, the more commonly known as, name, image, and likeness, or NIL opportunities. You know this is very much happening in collegiate athletics, and it's trickled down into high school. So at the time, I had shared with the committee that I would do some consulting with Thurn and imagined that they would be sending some guidance very shortly. Well, and they just did. So I need a minute to go through that. It's quite thick. I need a minute to go through that and really understand it and talk about it with Mr. Zajac, principals and coaches, particularly here at the high school. And then I will report back both to the policy committee and the full board. Questions?
Can I make just a point
Of
on
course.
that one? And you know, obviously, if you haven't had a chance to go through what Thurn sent, but after the discussion in the committee meeting, one of the things I thought about is that, you know, the policy that we have for this, and we're going to be largely dependent on Thurn without other districts to kind of guide us, you know, needs to address both what we as a district are doing and how we're interacting with outside individuals too. And because I think at the college level, that's where a lot of the kind of complexity and decisions are happening outside of the actual purview of the school between private individuals with money and a want to drive an outcome. So we should be aware that the policy needs to be looking not just at what we as a district do, but how we're interacting with community members who may have a vested interest here.
Yep.
I think too, it goes back into the brand protection. So the state law has some verbiage about not utilizing the school's branding. And so, and not being on school grounds, that sort of thing. So I think some of it is that, but I agree too. I think some of the policy has to be maybe around how do we manage if something goes awry with one of those parties and a student, but also eligibility requirements and how, maybe that's not a board policy, maybe that becomes an operating procedure within the district, but Mr. Zajac will need to be involved in that discussion of eligibility and what happens if they overstep, because my understanding is the timeframes too are based on the season. So like right now, if we have girl basketball players who maybe this would be when softball, they could use their image, you know, how do you manage that if things overlap, that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of, I would say, Matt, maybe going to Adrian College or Eastern Michigan University or something like that and asking them how they're managing NIL with their student athletes along with the training information might be helpful. Because they have those same, the collegiate side, they're allowed to use the college image and likeness, but that maybe they have some things that might help us. But understanding the state of our athletic programs in the county, we more than likely are going to have at least 2 students, if not not a few more that probably will take advantage of this and have siblings that have taken advantage of this outside of high school, so, you know, it's something that we'll need to do.
Yep. Yep, absolutely.
And I think the other, just one more thing, just conflict of interest for coaches and directors and.
Yep, good point.
You know, the colleges may be a good model for us. I mean, I think we're all kind of in uncharted territory here, and so, you know, you have to look to where there's some framework for it.
Yep, starting point.
Yeah.
All right, anything further?
I just have a question on the fund balance. First, I'm glad that we've come up with a common KPI of what we're going to measure to, right? That was one of the key things. But how many times, I think you mentioned that in the last board meeting, you gave an update about how many times we missed our fund balance target. So I was just wondering, in the policy meeting, did you guys talk at all about what rules, or what are we going to do, what can we do to put in place how we manage that? Because it seems like we've been on a trend of not meeting our targeted fund balance. And we could set a target for 12%, but if we miss it every year, what does that mean? What do we do? I don't know. I'm just open to hear some ideas. Or
So I can think aloud a little bit, and then trustees can weigh in as well. I think that one of the discoveries that I've had, at least in my time, that I also suspect has been true prior, is that while the policy is written as a percentage of expenditures, what has been reported is a percentage of unassigned revenues. And so getting clear on first of all, what we're actually going to report, and then sticking to that, I think is our first and most critical step. Secondly then, certainly when we're setting our budgets, I will have discussion with the board around where we're at, and you heard Mr. Lenar say we're actually going to present to you the final 25-26 in May, which is also a shift in a really good direction. With the monitoring reports that he's using and the conservative approach that he's taking, we do believe we're going to be able to come back and report to you a positive rather than being in the negative, the 300,000. Where that will land us exactly, I'm not exactly sure yet. But once we have that number, it'll be solid, and we'll report it to you either as percentage of revenue or percentage of expenditure. And then I think it speaks back to, at least for me, what I was saying earlier around it becoming a trailing indicator, meaning if we're conservatively building our budgets, we're monitoring budgets each and every month, we should then be able to hit that target consistently going forward. But those are my thoughts. I would open it up for others.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would agree on that, you know, we felt like we're dealing with, we've been dealing with a set of numbers that then we're having to kind of convert over to how the state's looking at it. And so, you know, I think as a first step, defining these things in a consistent way so that we're not tossing different sets of numbers back and forth and, you know, working from there. And you know, I think to the point too about, you know, this is a trailing indicator, that was, you know, we're undergoing significant change to how the budget is being managed, presented, and it is easy to get kind of hung up on that negative point. But, you know, as Mr. Hilton is saying, as we're addressing these issues that have been there, and the budget operationally is correcting, then that balance comes up on account of budgeting well, rather than aiming, you know, specifically for, let's build the budget around meeting this number. You know, if we're building effective budgets, that number should be where we're at anyway.
yeah, I agree. The reason I bring it up is, like, and I know it's different, but in my world, in the business world, you set a budget, and if you miss it, then you have direct policy that tells you how you have to report back to the board to explain what happened. And there's a set policy on how to do that, right? So then everybody, it's standardized. And that's why I was wondering, in this situation, I think we've done a lot of great things, but who's to say 2 years down the road we don't have the same issue? You don't know, right? We didn't know we were here until we were here. So then my feeling is you generally standardize that to say, hey, this is kind of how we're going to manage it, and this is what we expect if we do come up short. I'm assuming, Lynn, you work in a very similar business. You have the same type of standards, and I don't know if it's normal in schools. That's why I asked, because I don't have experience with it. I just wondered if there's a way to lay that out.
Yeah, I think to the lagging indicator perspective, this is a performance indicator versus a process indicator, so we need to find the process indicator.
That's true, yeah.
But I also think, to Darren's point, a district operating procedure, I'm not sure that it's a board operating procedure.
Okay.
I think it's more of a district operating procedure to say, Matt, you as a superintendent, when you see something that doesn't match the board policy on it, what kicks into gear?
Right.
And, I think could be helpful to the district and to the community, again, of what are the first things we look, or what are the areas that we look at first? First, we gotta find wherever the problem is, that root, but like in an emergency situation, what do we do? So, we set 3% aside for maintenance, but is that something based on the age of our buildings and kind of what we're seeing coming forward as kind of a thing we're not going to touch, or that's further down the list? What are those things that you can look at first? I don't think that's a board policy. I think that's too detailed for a board policy. However, if there's a directive that you need from the board, then that can become a board procedure that says, if we fall below this point, at whatever point, then the board, needs to tell the superintendent, authorize you to do something, and then what are those areas? If we get to the point where some neighboring districts are getting, where they have to vote to go below the state minimum threshold, that's maybe the next step of this policy discussion. I think first though, what we use it for. And I think, the state can only have a lagging indicator to check, because it's audited. But from a district officer perspective for you, like, what is that number? What is that indicator, that process indicator that tells you that things are okay?
Yeah. So if I was to put this in some of my own language, when we think about a district operating procedure, I would just, my head kind of goes back to the last 6 months where we found out from an audit that we had a challenge that we needed to address and address immediately. So I want to be clear, though, that I think that with what we're doing with Mr. Lennar and Mrs. Francoeur, we are monitoring these budgets in such a way now that who knows, to your point, who knows what the future holds. But that audit should come back the way we want it to come back. But anyway, I'm getting off the track a little bit. With the district operating procedure, when I found that out, one of the very first things I did was call the board president, made the board president aware of our current situation, and then I communicated with the full board, and then I took steps to investigate it and find out exactly what was occurring. From there, I worked with Mr. Lennar, and eventually Mrs. Francoeur came on board to sleuth, if you will, the big buckets of the budget to find out where we were off track, and we then took steps to correct that and ensure that we actually had what I would call real and accurate numbers. So I know that's off the top of my head, but in terms of some sort of district procedure or operating procedure, it would look something like that. to me, if that makes sense to the board.
And I think it does, and professionally, I can say a lot of times standardized procedures come because of problems you didn't think you'd ever have.
Sure.
But you have a chance of having again. But and I think Mrs. McGee has shared these before, but also kind of checking maybe some neighboring districts that have a slightly more detailed board policy, and maybe an operating procedure could be helpful to give you some ideas of kind of what maybe
Sure.
should be looked at. But I think I agree with you that we're moving forward in the right direction. So we also need to use this momentum to leave behind the tools and expectations for those that come behind us as well. Because I think we didn't have that either. So making pretty quick work on it, but leaving something that future boards and future superintendents, future finance directors
Yep.
can utilize is always helpful too. And I don't know if the LISD has anything.
I will research. And I'm starting to envision a board operating procedure binder. Yeah, okay.
That would be good. We've
Okay.
talked about that for
Yep.
years.
One additional thing in addition to the fund balance that I've talked about is cash or some type of liquid asset equivalent barometer that we have a guidepost around. I think that coupled with the fund balance should keep us on par during the year, make sure we can pay our bills.
Got it.
Matt, when we first started I first started on the board, myself, Becky and Tim were already here, Lynn was new. We talked about the fund equity that we wanted to maintain. It was initially 15%, not 12%. But the reason for that, more than anything else, was that we had that little bit of padding in the budget. So if there was a problem, and look what we just had here with 31 AA money, $300,000 just gone, because we didn't want to buckle to the, I'm still going to say extortion, that we had to give up our rights with our attorney. And when you have that extra padding, you don't have to worry about late in the summer or beginning of the school year where you have to cut a program because you don't have enough money, or you have to lay off a teacher. And I'm all about, the policy's great, but I think we have to keep the purpose in mind why we do that too. We've lowered that from 15 to 12 already, which means the margin in there for any error just gets a little tighter. And that's just part of the equation. Everything everybody said here was just as good as that, but just the reason why we do it is so that it supports the kids and the staff that we have, because nobody wants to go in there, oh yeah, you got a job, oh no, you don't have a job, and then you're going to pay that person anyway if you didn't pink slip them ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Purpose.
Historically, that was not a policy. That was something that we put in. And like exactly what he said, we started at 15%. That wasn't really feasible with what was going on with COVID and everything, and so we ended up dropping it. But
Thanks.
good.
Okay.
All right. So that takes us into discussion items.
And that is still me,
It is.
trustees. I'm up first with a discussion item. Excuse me, trustees, we recently had a generous $200 donation from Bruce and Michelle Gifford in support of our Tecumseh High School robotics team. 'Tis the season for robotics team competitions, and they're certainly gearing up. And we're just very, very grateful for the donation from the Gifford family. Any questions on that? Okay, well, staying with me, we are moving on to the Troon policy updates as our next item on for discussion. Trustees, the policy, as I mentioned, the policy committee did meet, and we looked at 4 policies that were part of the Troon's package. These 4 policies are 3 of them we actually already have. And there were some minor language updates from the attorneys. And the committee's recommendation was that we accept the updates and we make no changes to the way we're currently implementing our policy. So I'll go through them each one at a time. They are in your packets. Policy 3118, Title IX, sexual harassment was discussed. Trustee, the policy included updated language from Thurn to make it consistent with the FBI's updated definition of sexual assault. The committee recommends adoption of this policy. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Policy 4113, Michigan's Earned Sick Time Act, better known as ESTA, was discussed. Trustees, you know this, we're a district with more than 10 employees, which makes this a required policy for us. The committee recommended that we continue our ESTA benefit year as being defined from July 1 through June 30, with employees being able to use ESTA time in hourly increments. This represents no change from our current policy, and the committee recommends adoption. So staying with ESTA, policy 4113-F-1, which is an ESTA form, was discussed. Trustees, we currently have this policy, and we do front load for part-time employees on a prorated basis, and the committee recommends that we continue this as a practice. Is there any board discussion? Okay, the last policy we discussed as part of the package was policy 4113-F-2, and ESTA checklist form was discussed. This is simply a new form designed to support districts in implementing Michigan's Earned Sick Time Act. The committee liked this checklist, as did Ms. Adamczak, who much of this runs through her office anyway. The committee recommends adoption, and there are no board choices. And that is the summary of the Thurn policy updates.
Thank you. Any questions before we move on? All right. So the last item of discussion is the superintendent contract that we passed at our last meeting. When Mr. Hilton had a chance to really go through and review it, he noted that the dates were such that when former President Lewis had started the contract, they had dated it for that school year, and that was not accurate. That would have backdated him to this school year as being implementing that. So all we did was update the start date to July 1st of this year, not last year. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yes, correct.
It is confusing. And I did send that all out to you Thursday to review. Nothing else is changed in it, just simply the fact that his new contract won't start until July 1st of this year and not retroactive to last year. Any questions on that? All right, then we will head into action items. Trustee Martinez?
All right. I move the board approve the 2026-27 district calendar as presented by the administration.
Second.
Roll call vote. Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Martinez?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
I move the Board of Education approve the Schools of Choice application procedures and enrollment windows as presented by the administration.
Second.
Roll call vote. Trustee Martinez?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee McGee?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
I move the Board of Education accept with thanks the donation of $200 from the Gifford family to the Tecumseh High School robotics team.
Second.
And roll call vote. Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Martinez?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
I move the Board of Education approve the employment contract for the superintendent as updated and authorize the board president to execute the contract on behalf of the district.
Second.
And Trustee Martinez?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Nay.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
And Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. And that will take us into the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda, which includes minutes from the regular Board of Education meeting from January 26, 2026, and minutes from the regular Board of Education meeting from February 23rd, 2026.
Second.
Roll call vote. Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Martinez?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
All right, I move we go into closed session to discuss strategy and negotiation of a collective bargaining agreement.
Second.
Roll call vote. Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Martinez?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. We are in closed session.
Takes about 3 days for the air conditioner to kick in, and then the opposite, when it suddenly gets cold, it takes
Yeah.
about 3 days for the
The fall.
Oh, you are missing a wheel.
on the back.
Well, I think it's broke off. This is not bad.
Put a yellow tape on that one.
We are back in session at 7:56. And that will take us to Mr. Hilton for items scheduled for next agenda.
So trustees, we will certainly have some good news. We have some scheduled reports, but the thing I want to share with you now is that we're going to bring forward the Q3 strategic plan report for this school year.
Okay. That will take us then to board comment.
My only board comment is the girls' basketball game is at Chelsea High School at 7 p.m. tomorrow. So let's all show up and cheer them on. We are a team that is much smaller, so in the postseason, they can add people from their JV team to their varsity team. We don't have a lot of depth, and we have a lot of knee injuries, so our girls need to hear as much cheering as possible.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I want to say something, but we got into pictures too fast. Every year we get John Wayne and Megan Stamper's people up here, and our kids compete really well, and it's an academic thing that they're involved with, and they get kids that want to go and get involved, and they do well, and they learn a lot from that. And those are two people we want to retain for sure. Carrie Barden, she's another one. I remember her. She was a freshman up through her senior year. I went from high school to middle school. She graduated and I got demoted, but she was always a cut above. I mean, she has a servant's heart, and that's what she does. And I didn't know we had an accomplished flautist sitting at the board table with us either until the other night. I didn't know that was you until later.
Oh, I didn't see you. Thanks for
But
coming.
it's an older crowd, and you see a lot of bald heads out there.
You couldn't see with the lights coming in.
Yeah, I didn't know it was you either. Until you was there walking down, I know who that is. Good job.
Along that lines, I guess I can give kudos to the music program. They've been doing outstanding and this is a very busy time of year for them. It doesn't slow down after football season. Actually ramps up with a whole bunch of different things. We hosted the solo ensemble event here for the high school, so it was a nice way to showcase the school. That went really well. They got straight ones for every single orchestra and every single band group, and then I also heard the sixth graders play. They kind of play in an unofficial kind of grading competition thing, and they sounded like eighth graders at least. I mean, it's just a phenomenal program. So they've just been doing great. And then I saw the play that they had across the street, and I think there was 17 band and orchestra in the actual play, and then there was like 8 in the pit, or the tech team. And it was just amazing to see them. It was almost like watching the band and orchestra at the same time. So that was just extraordinary.
Excellent. Anyone else? All right. With that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned, 8 o'clock on the dot.